The generals were well aware that there were too many survivors in the central metropolis to evacuate them all in a short time. Besides the survivors eager to leave, there were some who clung to the hope of staying hidden within the city. They believed that going outside meant certain death and insisted on not leaving. The people organizing the retreat didn't have time to wait for them, nor would they spend time persuading them. Whether to go or not was their choice, and whether to live or die was their own decision. Even if they retreated with the military, it didn't guarantee their safe escape. The outside world was more dangerous than the metropolis, that was beyond doubt, but it was also full of vitality. Compared to being trapped in the metropolis and wiped out, there were more opportunities for survival outside. Even if they left the group and found a safe place to hide, they could re-emerge once the danger passed. Some people were reluctant to leave, so the military couldn't withdraw completely. They left them behind to face death, and Xiao Zhang wanted to stay to hold back the impending wave of zombies, buying time for their escape. Old Shui strongly disagreed. He wanted Xiao Zhang to leave with the others and stay behind himself to block and intercept. Xiao Zhang also refused to agree. The two of them were about to argue when Xiao Zhang timely intervened, saying, "Stop arguing. You go, and I'll stay behind with a team to obstruct and intercept." Xiao Zhang was about to refuse but was stopped by Xiao Zhang. "Stop arguing with me. I have nothing holding me back. My only nephew, Yunhan, is currently in Wen Qingling's base. If you manage to survive, I hope you can take care of him." Xiao Zhang looked at Xiao Zhang with a complex expression. "Xiao Zhang, you are more important. Your son, Xiao Hen, is the only person who can communicate with Wen Qingling. The survival of the Chinese survivors rests solely on Xiao Hen's shoulders." Xiao Zhang was Xiao Hen's father, and only by protecting Xiao Zhang was there a possibility of softening Xiao Hen's stance. It was also the only way to ease the conflict between humans and Wen Qingling. Until this moment, they finally understood that if they hadn't torn their face with Wen Qingling in the civilized city, Xiao Hen would definitely come back to help. Regardless of whether Wen Qingling was human or a zombie, as long as he harbored no ill will towards humans and could be of assistance to them, humans could accept him. But now, all chances of peace were destroyed. In front of all the generals and high-ranking officials, Old Shui finally said the words he had been holding in for a long time. "Xiao Hen has already warned me not to antagonize Wen Qingling. He might be humanity's last refuge." In the end, they still embarked on the path of enmity with Wen Qingling, even though Old Shui vehemently tried to stop them. It led to the current situation. Xiao Zhang smiled. "Try to ease the situation. The outside is no safer than the metropolis. It's dangerous everywhere. Take care of yourselves and strive to survive." The ground beneath their feet trembled, rumbling as if a giant was approaching. There was no time to delay anymore. Everyone got into their vehicles and left the metropolis at the fastest speed possible. Xiao Zhang immediately ordered the closure of all city gates and had Earth Elemental ability users seal the gates from the inside to minimize the risk of the zombie tide breaking through. The night outside the city was pitch black, illuminated only by the slow-moving convoy on both sides. The survivors, protected in the middle, ran frantically. Trucks followed closely behind, and when someone couldn't go on due to exhaustion, they would be pulled into a vehicle to rest for a while. They took turns like this, trying to rescue every single person. Those with vehicles followed behind the advance team, forming a long convoy. Armored vehicles and armed helicopters provided protection as they headed west. This direction had relatively fewer zombies, but they were not absent. The mission of the advance team was to clear the zombies and pave the way for the survivors behind. Occasionally, zombies would emerge from the roadside and pounce on the crowd. Some would be blocked by the outermost vehicles and killed on the spot, while the ones that managed to get past the vehicles would be dealt with by the soldiers walking on the outskirts of the survivors. Layer by layer, they protected each other. As soldiers, they were fulfilling their final duty, doing their best to let the survivors live on. Even if they were occasionally dragged away by zombies, the formation remained intact. Injured survivors and soldiers were rescued and brought along, with the hope that they could still be saved. They had developed antidotes and vaccines, the result of research conducted by the Chinese people. Even though there was a conflict between the central metropolis and the civilized city, they were all still Chinese people. Even if they were zombies, they were Chinese zombies. Perhaps, just perhaps, their relationship with the civilized city could be eased. In that case, the wounded and infected would still have a chance, and they would still have hope of survival. Gigantic shadows moved through the night. Their destination was the central metropolis. The remaining soldiers guarding the city could feel the ground shaking, and everyone was tense and fearful. Facing death, no one was without fear. They only hoped that when they died, it wouldn't be too painful. They fought to buy time for the departing convoy, hoping that their deaths would have some value. The rumbling sound grew closer. Just when they thought the creatures were right outside the city walls, the vibration suddenly stopped. Everyone tightened their grip on their weapons. In the next moment, with a thunderous impact, a section of the 100-meter-high city wall collapsed. A massive head emerged from the collapsed area, straining to look inside the city. Everyone's hair stood on end. They had never seen such a massive zombie before. Sha Zhang gave the order, "Open fire." All the artillery shells aimed at the giant head and bombarded it. The head staggered back, letting out an angry roar. The thunderous impacts continued, and the 100-meter-high city wall trembled and threatened to collapse. The soldiers who remained behind knew their fate. Their only belief was to delay as much time as possible. The battle intensified, and suddenly, two figures appeared at the initial breach. They were silhouetted against the moonlight, making it hard to see their faces, but one was tall and the other slender. Sha Yang's mind started to go blank as the words relayed by Shu Guang echoed clearly in his mind. "I see two individuals. One has black hair, black eyes, and a black windbreaker. He's an adult man, accompanied by a teenager. The teenager has black hair and red eyes, around 15 or 16 years old. His appearance is exactly like Wen Qingling's. They are not human." Sha Zhang stared fixedly at them, murmuring, "The Zombie King." "That's the Zombie King," the man roared, and all the zombies that had been blocked outside the city grew restless, joining in with their own howls, shaking the heavens. The man held the young boy's hand and leapt down from the high wall. Instead of entering the city, they chased after the departing large convoy. The giant zombie that had been hitting the city wall suddenly displayed higher intelligence. It no longer got stuck in the breach but started grabbing zombies and throwing them into the city. Zombies fell from the sky, instantly disrupting the defense formation. Close combat soldiers rushed forward to fight the zombies thrown inside, protecting the artillerymen and continuing long-range attacks. Inside the civilized city, everyone was awakened by the roar of planes. They had expected a fierce battle, but it never happened. After dropping a round of bombs, the planes departed. The civilized zombies and the new humans waited for a while, but when they didn't see the planes return, they went back to sleep with relief. Wen Qingling knew that the foreign intruders with ill intentions had been dealt with. Tonight, the civilized city wouldn't face any danger anymore. He thought for a moment and said, "Go and bring Kui Bao back." "We can't leave it outside all the time." Xiao Hen said, "All right." Xiao Hen asked, "Where should we go?" Wen Qingling replied, "The central metropolis." Xiao Hen was taken aback. He thought Wen Qingling would go directly to Yunjing City, but he hadn't expected the central metropolis. Wen Qingling explained, "Those zombies have already left Yunjing City." Xiao Hen understood. He embraced Wen Qingling tightly, and when he let go, Xiao Hen had already disappeared. He reappeared in a distant city after multiple teleportations, finally inside the central metropolis. The central metropolis had already turned into ruins. The 100-meter-high city walls had been breached by the giant zombie, and zombies of all sizes poured in through the gaps, searching the entire city for fresh flesh. Frowning at the sight of the devastated central metropolis, Xiao Hen muttered to himself, "Wait here, I'll be right back." And with that, Xiao Hen disappeared from where he stood. Wen Qingling didn't follow him. He knew what Xiao Hen was going to do. Even if he turned into a true zombie, as long as he retained his intelligence, he wouldn't be indifferent to his bloodline relatives. Wen Qingling himself couldn't be cold-blooded towards his own family, let alone Xiao Hen. Wen Qingling scanned the area with his spiritual power. This place wasn't a dead city, there were still surviving humans. They hid in enclosed spaces, each of them covering their mouths and noses, trying to make their breathing sound as quiet as possible. Standing there, Wen Qingling saw the zombies in disarray respectfully avoiding him. Even though Wen Qingling had concealed all his aura, facing a king, these zombies instinctively feared him. Wen Qingling's gaze fell ahead, where many soldiers in military uniforms roamed the streets as zombies. Judging from their wounds and fresh bloodstains, they were soldiers of the central metropolis who had recently turned into zombies. Among these soldier zombies, one was different. Its abdomen was half gone, covered in blood, and the military uniform's original color was indiscernible. Half of its face was also a bloody mess, heavily gnawed upon, but the remaining half had minimal decay. Wen Qingling could recognize it at a glance. It was Sha Zhang. Xiao Hen reappeared, his eyes filled with coldness. The people from the 3rd district have disappeared. I can't find Xiao Zhang and old Shui. Although he had a cold demeanor, he hadn't reached the point of being completely heartless. Old Shui, who was his blood relative and had taken care of him since childhood, he couldn't just stand by and watch them die, even though his relationship with his father wasn't good. Xiao Hen followed Wen Qingling's gaze and also recognized Sha Zhang among the group of soldier zombies. Wen Qingling's gaze remained fixed on these soldier zombies, and he asked Xiao Hen, "What do you want to do?" Xiao Hen replied, "Bring them back to the civilized city. To become a new human, one must first be a zombie. Only then can they undergo reorganization after the zombie virus has destroyed human genes, obtaining a stronger physical constitution and power than humans." Wen Qingling smirked. "Just as I thought." Wen Qingling particularly liked recruiting soldier zombies. These soldier zombies were obedient and followed orders. They often became the sacrificial pawns in power struggles. When they were ordered to die, they could only go and die because they didn't have a choice. As soldiers, they had a duty to protect the lives of citizens. Wen Qingling didn't have any issues with soldiers, his grievances were with the selfish higher-ups. Wen Qingling said, "They have already left. Sha Zhang should have stayed behind to intercept the zombies, but the entire army was annihilated. Now, there wasn't a single living soldier in the central giant city. They had all died in battle, eaten or converted, giving their all until the very end." Wen Qingling scanned with his psychic power, gathering all the soldier zombies within the central giant city. He instructed Xiao Hen to first send these soldier zombies back to the civilized city while he went to chase after the wild Kui Bao. Xiao Hen could use spatial displacement to transport these soldier zombies, but the distance was too far, requiring several shifts. Xiao Hen didn't object and left with the soldier zombies. Wen Qingling followed the army of zombies, heading towards the wild Kui Bao. Author's note. Thank you all for your support, kisses. P.S. Xiao Hen is now a pure zombie, following the example of Wen Qingling as a pure zombie. Although he claims to have little emotion, it doesn't mean he has no feelings at all. His emotions are just very faint. When it comes to his loved ones and friends, he still has a protective instinct. Xiao Hen is the same. He has become cold and ruthless, but he won't ignore the danger faced by his loved ones and friends. He hasn't lost his memories, it's just that apart from love, his other emotions aren't as intense. During his evolution, what he feared the most was becoming a pure zombie like Wen Qingling, who didn't understand emotions. He didn't want to forget his fondness for Wen Qingling. Therefore, after his evolution, the affection he feels for Wen Qingling is much stronger than any other emotion. One Attack on Titan Vibes. HAHAHAHAH. Chapter 143. The evacuating survivor group consisted mostly of pedestrians. Despite running non-stop, their speed was still no match for regular zombies. To compare their speed with evolved zombies would be an absolute defeat. And as for comparing their speed with giant zombies, it goes without saying that they had no chance at all. A giant zombie could cover the distance in a single step that would take a survivor half a day to run. Not to mention the man and the young boy who was already being chased by the zombies. As the sound of the approaching horde grew louder, more and more zombies caught up with them. Everyone panicked. The survivors who had vehicles couldn't wait any longer. They didn't want to stay behind and die with the others. After the first vehicle broke out from the convoy and quickly sped away, more private cars followed suit and left on their own. The armored vehicles and armed helicopters at the rear had already started fighting. The number of zombies was overwhelming, like a flood that kept surging forward. For every wave that was annihilated, another immediately filled the gap. It was an endless slaughter. The armed helicopters strafed and bombed the oncoming horde of zombies from the air. The front of the group mainly consisted of evolved zombies, whose strength was formidable. In one-on-one combat, a soldier was not necessarily able to defeat an evolved zombie. These evolved zombies moved like monkeys, leaping and dodging amidst the barrage of bullets. The survivors near the back of the group were in chaos. Everyone screamed and pushed forward, fearing being left behind and devoured. The lighting was dim, and there were too many survivors. They all rushed forward, causing many to fall. It was like a domino effect. one person falling and causing others to fall as well. No matter how the soldiers at the outer perimeter shouted through loudspeakers, it was futile. Everything was in chaos. At this critical moment of life and death, everyone wanted to survive. Fear-stricken survivors broke through the outer perimeter and clung to military vehicles. They wanted to seize the vehicles, they didn't want to die there. They wanted to leave as quickly as possible. Several soldiers guarding the outer perimeter were trampled upon by the crowd. No one cared whether the fallen soldiers were dead or alive, they only wanted to grab the vehicles. They wanted to leave immediately, they couldn't afford to wait for even a moment. Xiao Zhang, Mo Zhang, and Lei Yang's vehicles were constantly moving back and forth within the group, monitoring the situation. The front of the survivor convoy was already out of control. Most of the vehicles had abandoned the main group and fled on their own. Chaos reigned in the front, and the chaos quickly spread to the rear. The three military vehicles rushed to the scene and witnessed the chaos. It infuriated them to the core. Lei Zhang had a volatile temper and immediately shot dead several survivors clinging to the doors of military vehicles and attacking the soldiers inside. Xiao Zhang immediately gave the order, "Everyone, listen up. Shoot anyone attempting to seize the vehicles." "Yes, sir." The military vehicles were filled with children and exhausted survivors. If they allowed those people to seize the vehicles, it was certain that the children inside wouldn't survive. Those crazed survivors would definitely discard the children and climb inside themselves. Upon receiving the order, gunshots rang out one after another. All the survivors clinging to the military vehicles were shot down. Witnessing soldiers daring to open fire on those trying to protect the survivors, many people began to cry and curse loudly. Lei Zhang saw that the defense in the rear was about to be breached. He rushed forward with Lei Yuxiao, and they stood on top of an armored vehicle, creating a wide electric grid. Any evolved zombies that pounced would be electrocuted and fall to the ground, unable to get up for a while. They were buying time. Every second they delayed meant more survivors would survive. Using such a large-scale ability had an enormous consumption each time. After 3 wide electric grids, both father and son clearly felt their energy depleting rapidly. It was on the verge of being exhausted. They had no choice but to resort to throwing explosive charges. They threw clusters of explosives that would electrocute a circle of zombies every time they detonated. Lei Yuxiao's ability couldn't hold on for much longer. He carried a machine gun and fired while shouting, "General, you go ahead. I'll cover the rear." The armored vehicle also continued to fire, suppressing the advancing evolved zombies. Lei Zhang took a step forward, grabbed Lei Yuxiao by his clothes, and threw him onto the roof of Xiao Yang's vehicle, which had been following closely beside him. "Stop wasting time. Go." Lei Yuxiao fell onto the roof of the military vehicle. Xiao Zhang opened the door, intending to pull Lei Yuxiao inside, but before Lei Yuxiao could climb up, a large shadow descended from the sky, aiming directly at Lei Yang's armored vehicle. "Dodge." Before Lei Yuxiao's voice could even fade, he watched helplessly as Lei Zhang was slapped by the giant zombie into the midst of the zombie horde. "Dad." Lei Yuxiao's eyes turned red. He struggled free from Xiao Yang's hand and without hesitation, chased after his father, using his remaining power to surround himself with an electric web, electrocuting all the zombies that pounced on him. The moment Lei Zhang hit the ground, he also wrapped himself in an electric web. Unable to get up, he was sent flying by the giant zombie's slap, even more vicious than being bitten by the zombies. Countless bones in his body had been broken, and he lay on the ground unable to move. Lei Yuxiao fought his way through the zombies, struggling to reach his father's side. He picked up his father from the ground but found themselves surrounded by the horde of zombies. With the electric web on their bodies, they could barely prevent the zombies from biting them. However, their powers were depleting rapidly, and the power of the electric web was gradually weakening. Lei Zhang was furious and cursed, "Who told you to come over? Put me down and get out of here immediately." The soldiers at the rear launched a frantic attack, trying to retrieve Lei Zhang and his son. However, there were too many zombies. Whether it was grenades or bullets, it was like dropping a stone into the ocean, causing no ripples. Seeing the Lei father and son being surrounded by the zombie horde, Xiao Zhang gritted his teeth. "Reverse. Ram through them." The driver obeyed the order and shifted to the highest gear, reversing and knocking down the zombies that lunged at them. The military vehicle had strong defense capabilities, but it couldn't withstand so many zombies blocking the way. Reversing became increasingly difficult, and they were still some distance away from the Lei father and son. Accelerate, accelerate, just a little more, Xiao Zhang shouted loudly. The electric web on the Lei father and son grew weaker and weaker. Once the electric web disappeared, they would be torn apart by countless zombies. To reduce resistance, both Xiao Zhang and Lao Shui fired their guns out of the shooting ports, killing as many zombies as they could. The military vehicle finally stopped beside the Lei father and son. Xiao Zhang opened the two small palm-sized windows. Get in the car, get in the car. Lei Yuxiao carried his father and struggled to squeeze towards the car door. There were too many zombies, and they couldn't open the door casually. Once they opened even a small gap, if they were caught by the zombies, they wouldn't be able to close it again. Lei Yuxiao was reaching his limit. Dad, let's give it a try. Lei Zhang and Lei Yuxiao instantly depleted their remaining powers, erecting a semicircular electric web. Xiao Zhang timed it and pulled open the car door, allowing Lei Yuxiao to quickly climb into the car and close the door as fast as possible. The whole process took no more than 3 seconds. As the electric web disappeared, the zombies surged forward, burying the military vehicle instantly. The driver kept stepping on the accelerator, but the military vehicle could only move slowly, pinned down by countless zombies. Lei Zhang felt heartbroken and angry. Old Xiao, you idiot. Why did you rush in? Now no one can escape, we're all going to die here. Cough cough, Lei Zhang started coughing violently, blood spewing from his mouth. He seemed to have injured his internal organs. Xiao Zhang looked at the footage transmitted by the external cameras and shook his head. No, saving you may be the only way to save ourselves. The giant creature, with dark skin and a height of 5 meters, had already smashed an armored vehicle when it landed. It picked up the flattened vehicle and swung it towards other armored vehicles, flipping over 2 nearby ones and sending them crashing into other vehicles. The creature threw the armored vehicle into the survivor group, killing an unknown number of people. Many people recognized this giant creature. Its appearance matched that of the level 8 evolved being, General, whom they had fought against alongside Xiao Hen. Everyone went crazy, attacking relentlessly, all aiming to kill this level 8 evolved being. The speed of the General was incredibly fast. Even Xiao Hen and Wen Qingling had been suppressed by its friction before. These ordinary soldiers were no match at all. It could grab a vehicle and throw it, easily killing multiple targets. The nearby military vehicles and armored vehicles retreated. The armed helicopters launched rockets at the General. The rockets exploded on its tough, steel-like skin, creating bursts of fire. The General staggered backward, roaring in anger. Boom! A cannon shot rang out, and the armed helicopter in the sky was blasted down, exploding in midair. The flames illuminated the entire night sky. A hideous and enormous zombie approached, with a turret embedded in its chest. The barrel of the turret was aimed at the armed helicopters in the sky. After destroying 2 armed helicopters with consecutive blasts, the turret adjusted its aim and targeted the group of survivors ahead. Boom, boom, boom. The level 7 evolved being, called the turret, began its one-sided massacre. The situation completely spiraled out of control. Seeing that the group of survivors in the rear was on the verge of collapse, they could only do their best to protect the front. All forces were redirected to support the rear. The appearance of level 7 and level 8 evolved beings simultaneously posed an unimaginable threat. At the most critical moment of the battle, as the horde of crazed zombies charged forward, they suddenly split apart, automatically creating a path. A handsome young man rode in on a bull. The bull was a mutant, as large as a train's locomotive. It ran fast and steady, lacking Xiao Hen's space teleportation. Wen Qingling didn't feel like walking to catch up, so he found this mutant bull on his way and rode it all the way here. The mutant bull charged forward with a moo sound, behaving recklessly. It only moved in straight lines and could directly knock away slow-moving zombies with its massive horns. Fearless, the mutant bull charged straight ahead. However, there was a roadblock ahead, a lump of iron. The mutant bull crashed into it head-on, with its enormous horns pushing against the obstacle. Xiao Zhang, Lao Shui, Lei Zhang, and Lei Yuxiao inside the vehicle looked dumbfounded. Xiao Zhang turned around and saw a gigantic mutant bull, pushing against the military vehicle with its horns, displaying extreme aggression. When he saw the person riding on the bull's back, Xiao Zhang almost thought he was seeing things. He instinctively looked for Xiao Hen's presence but couldn't find it. It's Wen Qingling. How did he appear here? The one who spoke wasn't Xiao Zhang but Lei Yuxiao. His voice was filled with surprise. Lei Yuxiao quickly opened the rear window and shouted outside, "Dr. Wen, Lord Wen, can you save my father? I'm willing to pay any price. Please save my father." Old Shui couldn't stop him in time, and Lei Yuxiao had already shouted out. Their relationship with Wen Qingling was currently quite awkward, and yet Lei Yuxiao was asking for help like this. How could Wen Qingling possibly agree? Wen Qingling looked at Lei Yuxiao, who was pressed against the small window, with an expressionless face and ice-cold eyes, as if he didn't recognize the person. Seeing that he didn't react, Lei Yuxiao hurriedly said, "Lord Wen, do you remember the deal we were going to make? Is it still valid? Please name your conditions. My father was injured by a level 8 evolved being. His injuries are severe. I beg you to save him." Wen Qingling's eyes flickered. The level 8 evolved being was also here. That was great because he had been itching to beat it up. Wen Qingling stood up, leapt into the air, and landed steadily on the shoulder of the level 8 evolved being. With a terrifying aura of a king, he pressed the previously fierce and ruthless level 8 evolved being down to the ground with a thud. The level 8 evolved being couldn't even lift its head. Wen Qingling stood on its shoulder and smacked its massive head repeatedly, saying, "You dare to hit me, dare to make me die over and over again. Come on, hit me again, be as arrogant as you want. Come on, hit me. Let me show you what it means to have a father." The level 8 evolved being was beaten into submission and didn't dare to fight back. It could only curl up and try its best to protect its head, howling in pain. The level 7 evolved being, which was indiscriminately firing its cannons, aimed at Wen Qingling when it saw its companion being suppressed. Wen Qingling reached out and inserted a wooden stake into the barrel, with dark vines wrapping around the turret, climbing up the massive body of the level 7 evolved being. Boom! With a tremendous explosion, the brainless level 7 evolved being self-destructed. Rotting flesh and blood scattered everywhere. Wen Qingling quickly jumped away, avoiding the filth. The level 8 evolved being seized the opportunity, got up, and ran towards the front of the group. Wen Qingling shouted, "Stop! Dare to run, watch me twist your head off, Father F***CKER. Of course, the level 8 evolved being didn't stop and ran even faster. It ran and jumped, fleeing in a disheveled manner. Wen Qingling leapt onto the mutant bull's back, gripping its horns with both hands. With one foot, he kicked the military vehicle away, pulled out the bull's horns, and turned it around. This bull car was too difficult to handle, and the mutant bull was unhappy without knocking away that thing. Wen Qingling desperately held onto the bull's horns, preventing it from crashing into the military vehicle again. Don't compete with the lump of iron. Go after it, knock that ugly zombie into the air. Charge, charge, charge. Victory belongs to you. Come on, old bull. The mutant bull's blood boiled as it moved and charged forward, knocking away countless zombies along the way. The battered military vehicle, enduring the double onslaught from the old bull and Wen Qingling, hadn't fallen apart yet and could hold on for a while. The driver reacted quickly and drove the vehicle through the gap created by the mutant bull, moving forward. All the soldiers who rushed to provide support from behind were perplexed. They were being suppressed by two high-level zombies one moment, and the next moment, one of the zombies died, and the other escaped. They were too powerful. Wen Qingling's strength deeply impressed everyone. Two figures, one large and one small, descended from the sky and landed on the roof of a military vehicle. The man let go of the boy's hand. "Go and play." The boy looked up at him, seemingly puzzled. The man held the boy's head. "You're hungry. This food is all yours." The boy understood the word, food, and excitement filled his crimson eyes. He leapt into the crowd. Piercing screams occasionally echoed, and a vacant area quickly formed within the crowded crowd. Everyone ran around a blood-drenched boy. The boy noticed that everyone was avoiding him, and he felt somewhat displeased. He took a deep breath and exhaled a mouthful of poisonous mist. Since they wouldn't feed him, they could all die. As the poisonous mist spread, all the survivors wailed and fell to the ground. When they stood up again, they had turned into red-eyed zombies, biting their prey within the crowd. The group was scattered, and many people rushed into the darkness, leaving no trace behind. The young boy found it amusing. He took another breath, ready to exhale more poisonous mist. Suddenly, a figure appeared and covered the boy's mouth, blocking the toxic mist. Wen Qingling pushed the boy away and wiped his hands disdainfully, looking at the boy in front of him who looked exactly like himself. He scrutinized him from head to toe. He hadn't expected that Kuibao would grow up to look like this. The two small ones at home were still so small, so how did he suddenly grow up like this? The boy, unable to release the poisonous mist in happiness, let out an angry roar. All the red-eyed zombies obeyed his command and converged toward Wen Qingling. Wen Qingling, speechless. He slapped the boy and decided to beat him up first before saying anything. You little troublemaker, you don't even recognize your own father. I traveled thousands of miles to find you here, and this is how you treat your dear old dad. You weren't raised by me, but you still have my genes. How come you haven't learned the essence of being a good socialist zombie? We don't provoke others, nor are we afraid of anything. How did these humans offend you? Did you transform all of them with your poisonous mist? Did they look beautiful covered in blood? The young boy was confused by the series of slaps and looked at the man with his crimson eyes, not understanding why he was being punished. The black-haired man standing not far away was also confused. His own child was being beaten by someone else. Could he tolerate this? Roar. A roar filled with a dominating aura echoed. All the zombies gathered in this direction, launching a group attack against the intruders. Wen Qingling turned his head and glanced at the man, issuing a zombie roar as well, spreading his aura of dominance. The approaching zombies, obedient to the call, stopped in their tracks, afraid to move forward. Once, he had been beaten by the level 8 evolved being, that despicable turtle, because he wasn't strong enough. But now, they were all at the same level, all kings. Who would fear whom? The black-haired man also realized that the zombie before him was on par with himself, except their auras of dominance were different. The former had combined with mutated evolution, taking a shortcut, while he had relied on immense energy for his evolution. The black-haired man had sensed the birth of a king in Ling City, and it was the zombie before him. It was the one who interrupted his own evolution. He had always remembered this grudge and had intended to deal with these humans first before settling the score with this pay-to-win king. But it turned out that he had come looking for him first. The black-haired man roared angrily and lunged toward Wen Qingling. Wen Qingling, being fearless, found the man extremely displeasing. How could he have corrupted his child? If he didn't beat him to death, he wouldn't be called Wen Qingling. As the two kings clashed, all the zombies respectfully stood by, and for a moment, no zombies went after the survivors. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the survivors quickly escaped. At the level of Wen Qingling and the black-haired man, their abilities and methods were too low. They resorted to the most primitive method. Those who were bitten would be unlucky, as the flesh and blood of kings were great nourishment. Wen Qingling fell to the ground, his clothes tattered, hair in disarray, and a bit confused. They were both pseudo-kings, so why couldn't his pseudo-king defeat the other pseudo-king? The black-haired man descended, wanting to quickly deal with Wen Qingling. Suddenly, the space around the man distorted and tore at his body, as if to shatter him. The man quickly reacted and made a gesture in midair, manipulating the airflow to forcibly correct the distorted space, successfully freeing himself. Xiao Hen appeared in the sky, confronting the black-haired man. Xiao Hen, are you all right? Are you injured? Upon seeing Xiao Hen, the man's eyes widened with rage. Sub-king, he pointed at Wen Qingling on the ground and shouted, you actually created a sub-king. Wen Qingling stood up, brushed off the dirt from his body, and replied to Xiao Hen's question, I'm perfectly fine, just my clothes are torn. The man felt ignored and was almost driven to madness. You all must die, a pseudo-king and a sub-king. Since you're companions, you should both die. Wen Qingling sneered, you talk as if you're not a pseudo-king yourself. None of us have truly reached the 10th stage, and no one is stronger than the others. What do you have to be proud of? They knew as soon as they met that neither of them were true kings. The black-haired man could at best be considered a potential king, only a step away from becoming a true king. But that half-step was incredibly difficult to overcome. Wen Qingling, on the other hand, was different. Although he hadn't truly entered the realm of kings, he was a true king. As long as he accumulated enough energy, he could ascend to the king's realm within minutes. Unlike the potential kings, who still had to search for opportunities and rely on fate to determine if they could become true kings. The more the man thought about it, the angrier he became. Who caused me to become like this? Wen Qingling was surprised. You're not implying it was me, are you? I won't take the blame for that. The man roared, it was you. When I was about to successfully break through the barrier of kings and become a true king, the aura of the true king suddenly appeared, affecting my advancement. That's why I'm now just a potential king. Wen Qingling shrugged. Well, that can only be blamed on your bad luck. The man continued to roar, it's not just that you caused me harm. You also unreasonably attacked my child. Wen Qingling exclaimed, What? What child? The man roared, pointing at the young boy beside him. My child, my Kuibao. Wen Qingling exploded instantly and jumped up to beat him. Are you blind? How could you have such a good-looking child? The man fought back, saying, Kuibao was found by me, so he's mine. Wen Qingling fiercely bit down, but was suddenly blown away by a gust of wind that appeared out of nowhere. Xiao Hen continuously manipulated his fingers, creating a three-dimensional space that trapped the black-haired man. As the man charged forward, the space suddenly exploded, trapping him. The man, covered in tattered clothing, emerged from the fragments of space, injured. The edges of his abyss-like black pupils were stained with blood. He roared, unleashing a powerful gust of air pressure toward Xiao Hen. The surrounding area became shrouded in dark clouds, and heavy rain poured down. Xiao Hen fought against the man in the pouring rain. Xiao Hen controlled space while the man manipulated the airflow, disrupting the magnetic field. Xiao Hen's spatial attacks were repeatedly interrupted, and the man's momentum grew stronger. Xiao Hen grew increasingly exhausted and seemed suppressed by the man. Wen Qingling joined the battle, and the two of them relentlessly attacked the potential king. To Wen Qingling and Xiao Hen's surprise, even when they joined forces, they could only fight the man to a draw. They had become true kings and sub-kings only recently and couldn't compare to the black-haired man, who had been stuck as a potential king for a long time. His accumulated strength made him truly formidable. Wen Qingling was determined to give him a severe beating. Wen Qingling was once again swept away by the airflow and rain, falling into a pile of red-eyed zombies. Instead of getting up immediately, he started actively gathering sacrifices, targeting the red-eyed zombies. One by one, the red-eyed zombies fell, and Wen Qingling's strength increased. He grabbed the crystalline core of a level 7 evolved creature from a distance and quickly absorbed it. His spiritual power spread out, actively seeking targets and absorbing all available energy. Meanwhile, Xiao Hen and the man had fought for hundreds of rounds. Xiao Hen grew increasingly weary, fighting desperately to buy time for Wen Qingling. Xiao Hen's spatial movement was once again interrupted, and he couldn't evade in time. He had a chunk of flesh torn off his side. Wen Qingling, lying in the mud, caught the scent of Xiao Hen's blood. He suddenly sprang up, pounced towards the black-haired man, and clung to his back. With a fierce bite, Wen Qingling sank his teeth into the man's neck, tearing off a piece of flesh and swallowing it directly. The flesh of a potential king was a great supplement, while Wen Qingling's flesh was highly poisonous. Wen Qingling was thrown off, and the three of them resumed their intense battle. Blood mixed with rainwater flowed down, and the rain poured incessantly from night to day. The rain was heavy, a rare occurrence in the post-apocalyptic world. The flesh of the potential king was indeed a great supplement. Whenever they had the chance, Wen Qingling and Xiao Hen would take a bite, steadily increasing their strength. The black-haired man gradually fell into a disadvantage. He roared in frustration, falling from the sky into the muddy water, looking battered and tattered. Xiao Hen's gigantic spatial blade was descending, but the young boy suddenly rushed forward and stood in front of the man. Xiao Hen was alarmed and swiftly shifted the space, redirecting the attack, narrowly saving the boy. The boy spread his arms, his crimson eyes filled with determination. No, no, no. He repeated these words loudly, persistently, like a small beast ready to bite at any moment. Come here. Wen Qingling reached out and grabbed the boy, pulling him back through space. The boy howled and struggled fiercely. He spat a mouthful of toxic mist toward Wen Qingling, but it didn't reach his face. Instead, it covered the boy's own face, forcing him to inhale his own toxic mist. Ah, 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 the boy screamed madly, his voice piercing. The black-haired man also let out a roar, covered in blood, as he crawled up to snatch the boy back. Give him back to me. Give him back. Wen Qingling grabbed the boy's face, brought it close to his own, and made the man look. Are you blind? I'm his real father. His real father. Look at our appearances, do you see any resemblance? The boy was being held up, his crimson eyes fixed on the man. He mumbled incoherently, go, 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 revenge, revenge. The black-haired man understood the boy's meaning, The boy wanted him to go ahead, heal his injuries, improve his strength, and then seek revenge. The man got up, his eyes locked on the boy, but he leapt backward towards the direction of Yunjing City. Like a tide, all the zombies retreated in that direction. The child belonged to him, and he would definitely take him back. Chapter 144. The flood of zombies receded, and amidst the rain curtain, only a dilapidated military vehicle remained parked not far away. Wen Qingling and Xiao Hen both had injuries, but their self-healing abilities were strong, and their wounds would quickly heal. Wen Qingling was trying to reason with the young boy, but the boy stubbornly refused to listen. He always tried to provoke Wen Qingling, which infuriated him. Wen Qingling lost his patience, releasing his grip and throwing the stubborn brat to the ground. Xiao Hen attempted to persuade the boy, but the boy continued to shout and throw mud at Xiao Hen, covering him from head to toe. Xiao Hen, speechless. Wen Qingling was truly angry. He slapped the boy and said, "If you continue to be so willful and stubborn, refusing to listen to reason, then you don't need to continue living. I can create you, and I can destroy you." An uncontrolled walking weapon of mass destruction was no different from having one or not. The boy paused, glaring fiercely at Wen Qingling, showing no sign of submission, but he stopped causing trouble. Wen Qingling knew what he was thinking. Wasn't he waiting for that potential king to come and save him, seeking revenge? Who was Wen Qingling afraid of? Xiao Hen walked towards the severely damaged military vehicle. He stood in the rain, covered in blood, and looked at the old Xiao and old Shui inside the car. Xiao Zhang had never been so emotional before. He looked at his son in the pouring rain, his eyes turning red, and his lips trembling. They had been here all along, witnessing everything. What else didn't they know? Xiao Hen and Wen Qingling were not human like them. Xiao Zhang wanted to get off the vehicle, but Xiao Hen blocked the door, not allowing him to get out. Xiao Hen asked him, "Are you going to the side of the humans or coming with me to the civilization city?" The civilization city stipulated that relatives and friends of civilized zombies and new humans were eligible to apply for residence outside the city. If the old Xiao and old Shui were willing, they would definitely have a place there. Too many words were stuck in his throat, and Xiao Zhang couldn't speak. Old Shui let out a long sigh. "There's Mo Zhang over there with the survivors. We don't need to worry anymore. If there were too many leaders and they couldn't unite, it would be better to separate and develop on their own." Besides, they didn't know how many survivors were left. All they knew was that many people died last night, countless people, all of them citizens of Huasha. Xiao Hen said, "If you're not comfortable with Civilization City, you can also go to Land City. The city walls there have already been built, and you can go anytime." As long as there was a city, there was no need to worry about survivors seeking refuge. Lei Yuxiao couldn't hold back anymore and trembled as he said, "Colonel Xiao, can you please plead with Wen Qingling? Save my father, he can't hold on much longer." It was fortunate that Lei Zhang was a supernatural being, otherwise, with so many broken bones and internal injuries, he wouldn't have lasted until now. A green light orb flew into the car through the window. The light orb dispersed, completely enveloping Lei Zhang. Wen Qingling walked over, holding a black vine in his hand, with the vine tied around a young boy who looked exactly like Wen Qingling himself. The boy was struggling in defiance, trying to break free from the accursed vine. Wen Qingling said, "You'll owe me something in return. When I figure out what it is, I'll come looking for you." Lei Yuxiao was extremely grateful and thanked Wen Qingling repeatedly. Wen Qingling suddenly remembered something and asked, "Let me ask, with the same surname Lei, do you know Grandpa Lei Hong?" Lei Zhang sat up abruptly as soon as he heard this, then leaned back in pain. My grandfather's name is Lei Hong. We are both from Ling City. After he retired, he went back to Ling City to live out his days. Unfortunately, Grandpa couldn't escape the zombie virus." Wen Qingling turned around while holding the young boy. "Then it's correct. Your grandpa is now in the civilization city." He was the oldest person in the city and had even mingled with the crowd. He had learned the gun technique from Xiao Hen and lived a pretty content life. Xiao Hen followed behind Wen Qingling, giving the old Xiao and old Shui some time to consider. Lei Zhang was extremely shocked and asked the old Shui with difficulty, "In Civilization City, are they all humans?" Old Shui also struggled to answer, "Indeed, they are all humans." Lei Yang's gaze went blank, "But my father, he has already turned into a zombie." All four people, including the driver, were horrified and terrified. Lei Zhang rushed towards the car door, wanting to chase after them and clarify, Wen Qingling. Is Grandpa a zombie or a human? What about him? Xiao Hen held onto Wen Qingling and carried the young boy, disappearing from the spot. Lei Zhang couldn't wait any longer and urged the driver, hurry, hurry, go to Civilization City. The heavy rain continued for 3 days before finally stopping. Wen Qingling left the young boy in the care of his biological parents, as he had no patience to deal with the troublesome child. Zhang Lan and Wen Zheng were startled when they saw the appearance of the young boy. Suddenly, such a big grandson appeared, and he hadn't been properly raised since childhood, becoming completely unruly. The two elders had complex feelings about it. The other two little ones were well behaved. They had already learned to speak clearly and often played with the young boy. But every time, the young boy would drive them away, not allowing anyone to get close. He refused to eat the food at home and would run to the breeding area when he was hungry, biting several mutated sheep that were about to give birth. It broke the hearts of the management personnel, who organized manpower every day to catch the thief. One night, he was finally caught in the act, trying to escape. When he pounced on a staff member, he bit through the person's major artery in the neck, spraying blood everywhere. Everyone was shocked. In the Civilization City, it was forbidden to eat humans, let alone eat one's own kind. It was a taboo. Everyone rushed forward and caught the slender young boy. When the desperate young boy opened his mouth to release toxic mist, he was slapped to the ground. Wen Qingling was extremely angry, and vines appeared in his hand, giving the young boy a severe beating. What do you think you're doing? Releasing toxic mist? Do you want to release toxic mist? Xiao Hen arrived and held Wen Qingling's trembling hand. Stop hitting him, it won't do any good. Wen Qingling said, if he's so unresponsive to advise, it's better to just kill him. Zhang Lan and Wen Zheng couldn't control him either. They clearly had food at home, but he refused to eat anything. He would only steal mutated livestock when he was hungry and would only eat them raw and alive. He lived like a savage, and they couldn't correct his behavior no matter what. Xiao Hen glanced at the fiercely determined young boy and calmly said, killing him won't solve anything. It's better to go to Yunjing City and kill the potential king. He's sure to listen to us. Indeed, this statement immediately stirred the young boy's emotions. He jumped up and was about to fight Xiao Hen, but Xiao Hen grabbed his thin wrist and used spatial movement to take him away from the scene. Wen Qingling treated the injured people and explained the situation and the identity of the young boy. Since the child was brought back by the lord of the city, it was natural for him to steal a few mutated livestock for food. The staff understood, and after advising Wen Qingling, they all went back to rest. Xiao Hen took the young boy to the city wall, where the boy continued to resist and fight against Xiao Hen. Xiao Hen's voice turned cold as he said, if you keep causing trouble like this, you won't live long enough to see the potential king arrive. Roar! The young boy growled at him. Xiao Hen grabbed the boy with one hand and said, what do you want to do? Why not tell me and see if I can help you? The boy didn't listen. He believed they were all liars, all culprits who hurt Feng Chang. They were all bad people and deserved to die. Xiao Hen said, do you want to see him? Do you want to go back? The boy stopped and looked distrustfully at Xiao Hen. Xiao Hen let go of him and said, stop causing trouble. Let's talk quietly, okay? The boy didn't say anything, but he looked at Xiao Hen warily. Xiao Hen said, do you want to be with him? Is that why you're causing such a commotion? If that's the case, let me tell you, you're going about it the wrong way. Your so-called father, the lord of the city who gave you life, he doesn't fall for this. If you keep causing trouble, you're only endangering your own life. The boy hung his head, and after a long time, he said, I want to see him. I want to go back. Seeing his dejected appearance, Xiao Hen let out a long sigh. He treats you well. The boy nodded. Good, very good. Xiao Hen asked, how is he good to you? The boy thought for a moment and said, he feeds me, clothes me, lets me play, he likes me. He was free in Yunjing City, able to do whatever he wanted. Feng Chang never restrained him, and as long as he was happy, everything was fine. Xiao Hen said, do you want to be with him, be together with him forever? The boy nodded in confusion. Together, together. Xiao Hen sighed again. Behave yourself a little, stop causing trouble, I'll talk to your father and try to persuade him to let you go back, okay? The boy looked up at him, as if trying to determine if what he said was true or false. No, not allowed, not allowed. Hit, Feng Chang. Xiao Hen heard the name for the first time. His name is Feng Chang. The boy nodded, his crimson eyes still fixed on Xiao Hen. Xiao Hen said, as long as you behave, we'll try not to hurt him. The condition for not hurting him was that Feng Chang should also be sensible. If he came rushing over for revenge, it wouldn't be possible to avoid a fight. Xiao Hen sent the boy back to Zhang Lan's place and then returned to the Lord's mansion. He told Wen Qingling about the incident, and Wen Qingling almost went straight to Yunjing City to beat Feng Chang up. How dare that wild man take away his precious kui? Xiao Hen finally managed to calm him down and observed the boy's behavior. If he behaved well and showed that he wasn't inherently bad, that he was just refusing to listen to reason and intentionally causing trouble with Wen Qingling, then they should indeed have a good talk with Feng Chang. Wen Qingling temporarily suppressed his anger. Ever since the Lord's mansion and the commander's mansion were built, they were staffed with people responsible for various tasks. There were dedicated personnel in charge of food and beverages. Normally, they would dine at the Lord's mansion or the commander's mansion. However, the next day, they intentionally went to Zhang Lan's place for a meal to observe Tong's behavior. It was rare for the young boy to sit at the table and eat quietly, appearing very obedient and completely devoid of the wildness and irrationality he displayed the day before. In truth, the boy understood everything. He was deliberately causing trouble for Wen Qingling. Seeing him being so well behaved, Wen Qingling felt a sense of frustration. His mood was similar to that of having one's prized cabbage stolen by a pig. It created a low-pressure atmosphere throughout the entire meal. After finishing their meal, they left. Xiao Hen was afraid that Wen Qingling wouldn't be able to control his volatile temper and would explode again, so it was better to separate the two for the time being. Ever since Wen Qingling became the true king, and Xiao Hen became the sub-king, the two of them were inseparable, and Zhang Lan and Wen Zheng had already tacitly accepted their relationship. With their status and position, Zhang Lan and Wen Zheng didn't know whether they should hold a wedding for them or not. If they did, should they invite the vast number of zombie brethren to attend as well? Zhang Lan hadn't figured out a solution yet when Xiao Hen's father and uncles arrived at Civilization City. They had been delayed on the road and it took them quite some time to find Civilization City. Fortunately, the journey was relatively safe because most of the zombies had gathered in Civilization City and Yunjing City. The number of zombies in other areas had decreased, making it convenient for travelers. Wen Qingling had someone take Lei Zhong and Lei Yuxiao to meet their grandfather, Lei Hong. Meanwhile, he accompanied Xiao Hen to meet Xiao Zhong and Old Shui. It was their first time setting foot in Civilization City. The city's planning and atmosphere were very comfortable. Each person had their own tasks, bustling about, talking, and laughing. Life was fulfilling, without as much idle time for forming gangs and scheming against each other. If they had that time, they might as well use it to till more land, and grow more crops. These were all essential for life. Seeing it with their own eyes, they truly understood the gap between Central City and Civilization City. Civilization City had already achieved self-sufficiency. Any surplus food would be exchanged with the other three bases. The circulating currency in Civilization City was beast crystals and energy crystals. The use of zombie crystal nuclei was prohibited, and hunting zombies was not allowed. Xiao Zhong and Old Shui were surprised when they heard about this system, but they didn't inquire further. After all, it was someone else's system, and they were outsiders who shouldn't question it. As they passed through the outer city, they saw a tractor stuck in the mud, unable to climb up. The driver jumped into the mud, lifted the tractor, and pushed it onto the paved road. Xiao Zhong, speechless. Old Shui, speechless. Were the people of Civilization City all so strong? This wasn't a case of a person operating a tractor, it was a case of a tractor operating a person. In the central city, they saw a guy who didn't take the usual route and wanted to go to the second floor. Instead of using the stairs, he directly jumped from the street to the second floor balcony and then casually walked inside. Xiao Zhong, speechless. Old Shui, speechless. They began to suspect that there might be something wrong with their eyes. Later, they saw a person carrying a mutated cow passing by and witnessed children jumping 2 meters high while playing around. They were all numb to it. This was something that normal people couldn't do, not even regular zombies. It would require at least an evolved zombie to possess such jumping ability and strength. But these were clearly humans. Where did they get such abilities? Both Xiao Zhang and Old Shui had serious expressions on their faces. Zhang Lan and Wen Zheng hosted a banquet to entertain Xiao Zhang and Old Shui. During the meal, they talked about the two children, and Xiao Zhang and Old Shui were surprised. They never expected that Xiao Hen and Wen Qingling had such a relationship. Even if two straightforward old-school men racked their brains, they couldn't have imagined that the two of them would be together. Zhang Lan made it clear that the two children now had a symbiotic relationship. They would rise and fall together, inseparable. After the initial surprise, Xiao Zhang quickly accepted the reality. He had already accepted the fact that his son was a zombie, so what else couldn't he accept? When asked about holding a wedding, Xiao Zhang only said that they would follow the children's wishes. The children's opinion was that there was no need for a wedding. It would be meaningless to hold a grand wedding in a post-apocalyptic world full of dead people. It would feel as awkward as holding a funeral. Moreover, they were no longer human and didn't have to adhere to human customs. After staying in Civilization City for 2 days, Xiao Zhang was about to head to Land City. It was the result of their discussion. Xiao Hen had Ji Rong send them to Land City by helicopter. Before boarding the plane, Xiao Zhang asked a question: are these people in Civilization City really human? Having spent 2 days in Civilization City, he had seen too many unexpected and unreasonable things. Since Wen Qingling and Xiao Hen didn't avoid showing them, it seemed they weren't afraid of being seen. Xiao Hen replied, "Zombies are just infected humans. As long as the zombie virus is removed, they are still human." Until the plane took off, Xiao Zhang couldn't snap out of it. His eyes gradually turned red. In the 3 years of the apocalypse, he had never felt regret. But at this moment, he felt immense regret, regretting his past decisions. Chapter 145. Half a month later, when Feng Cheng's injuries had just recovered, he came to Civilization City alone. He stood outside the city walls without entering. Entering someone else's territory without permission could be seen as a provocation. With Tong in their hands, Feng Cheng didn't dare to act recklessly. He came alone to make a statement. He genuinely came to retrieve someone, not to fight or seek revenge. Besides, he might not even win a fight, especially considering the resemblance between Tong and that person. If they could coexist peacefully and return Tong to him, Feng Cheng could let go of his grudge and hindrance to becoming the king. Feeling Feng Cheng's presence, the young boy became excited. He had been obedient for half a month, and now Feng Cheng had finally come to take him away. The young boy looked at Xiao Hen with shining eyes, hoping that he would keep his promise. Upon learning that Feng Cheng had arrived, Wen Qingling and Xiao Hen immediately came to where the boy was. Faced with such a boy, Wen Qingling couldn't bring himself to be angry. Liking and relying on someone was not something one could decide for themselves. Perhaps Feng Cheng had genuinely treated the boy well, otherwise, the boy wouldn't have been so fixated on him. Xiao Hen brought Wen Qingling and the boy, appearing on the city wall together. Feng Cheng's gaze fell first on the boy, as if inspecting him for any injuries or grievances. Wen Qingling couldn't help but want to punch him when he saw his protective appearance. Wen Qingling asked him, "Can you tell whose child he is now?" Feng Cheng felt wronged and replied, "He's from your family. But I found him and raised him. If he could overpower them, he wouldn't waste time talking. He would simply take the boy away." Wen Qingling coldly snorted, "You're so fond of our child." Feng Cheng nodded repeatedly, I can take care of him." Wen Qingling maintained an authoritative tone, "If you take him away, can you protect him?" Feng Cheng continued nodding, "I can, definitely." Wen Qingling lifted his chin, "Then let me ask you, how did Tong suddenly grow up?" Feng Cheng, speechless. Wen Qingling didn't hide the truth from him either, "I have 2 more children at home who just don't grow, no matter how they eat." Feng Cheng felt a bit hurt. It seemed like his energy reserves were being used by someone else. It's energy. Wen Qingling's eyes brightened. When they were feeding Kui Bao, they only provided meat and never gave them energy. It seemed that as long as they saved enough energy, the children could grow. Afterward, Wen Qingling made a few more requests before allowing Feng Cheng to take the boy away. This decision surprised not only Feng Cheng and the boy but even Xiao Hen didn't expect Wen Qingling to agree so readily. Wen Qingling turned arrogantly and said, "Since the child wants to go with him, then let him. Having more bodyguards is not a bad thing. Besides, he can't defeat us, and he wouldn't dare to mistreat Tong." Feng Cheng, speechless. The threat in his words was palpable. Before leaving, Wen Qingling suddenly remembered something, and Feng Cheng immediately pulled the boy behind him to hide. Wen Qingling, speechless. Wen Qingling said, "Tone down your arrogant attitude. Stop flirting around with others. What's the use of flirting with those foreign zombies? Are you clearing the field for the foreign invaders? Did they pay you for your services? Instead of being proactive, return those foreign zombies and let them fight amongst themselves. That's when it'll be interesting." Wen Qingling held grudges. Each country that had bombed Civilization City would be accounted for. No one would be able to escape. Feng Cheng agreed with a nod and turned to leave. Wen Qingling called him back again. "Hey, do you want to call me, Dad?" Feng Cheng, speechless. Feng Cheng, speechless. Feng Cheng's temples throbbed as he quickly flew away with the boy in his arms. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, they might end up fighting again. Xiao Hen was also shocked by Wen Qingling's words. It was incredible that someone older than him would call him Dad. How could he come up with such an idea? Among Wen Qingling's conditions, one of them was access to the resources in Yunjing City, which Civilization City could use freely. Wen Qingling had set his sights on the various major research institutes in Yunjing City. There must be many talented researchers there, and Wen Qingling loved talent the most. Without delay, the next day, Wen Qingling took Xiao Hen to Yunjing City. After careful consideration, they brought back all the people and items that Wen Qingling was interested in. Now Civilization City wouldn't lack management personnel. A month later, after accumulating a certain quantity of detoxifiers, vaccines, and conversion agents, Civilization City released a message that all civilized zombies and new humans could go out and search for their own relatives. The converted relatives had to live within Civilization City, while human relatives could live outside the city or in affiliated bases. If they wanted to live in Civilization City, they needed to apply in advance and pass the review to be admitted. The entire Civilization City was in an uproar, and even the 3 affiliated bases learned about this news. Almost everyone had relatives who had turned into zombies. They never dreamed that one day zombies could be converted into new humans. The 3 affiliated bases immediately applied to Civilization City, hoping to find their zombie relatives. They asked if Civilization City could sell them conversion agents, and Wen Qingling agreed. The usage of the conversion agents would be, first batch for Civilization City, second batch for the 3 affiliated bases, and the third batch for Land City. After that, there would be no more batches, and it would be extremely difficult for survivors outside these 3 batches to obtain the conversion agents. The same distribution method would apply to detoxifiers and vaccines. When the survivors realized that they wanted to join the 3 affiliated bases in Land City, it was already too late. The 3 affiliated bases were already full and no longer accepting external survivors. Everyone took pride in being part of the 3 affiliated bases. Land City's city lord was Old Shui, and Xiao Zhang was in charge of military affairs. Having learned from the lesson of the central giant city, they didn't accept just anyone into their base. There were conditions for those who wanted to join Land City, and the conditions were not low. Civilization City and the 3 affiliated bases couldn't be entered, so every day many survivors went to Land City to try their luck. After the completion of Land City, Lei City and Jiao City were also built, with Lei Zhang single-handedly building Lei City and Mo Zhang building Jiao City. Now, with the conversion agents, more and more bases began to transform into cities. However, building a city was not an easy task, especially after Wen Qingling and Feng Cheng disbanded the zombie horde. Zombies were everywhere outside, and without real power, it was impossible to build a city. Under Lei Yuxiao's efforts, Lei City finally ranked 4th in the batch for the distribution of medicine. Jiao City was also making efforts. They repeatedly traveled to Civilization City and used generous conditions to break through the barriers, making Jiao City part of the 5th batch for the distribution of medicine. Apart from these 5 batches, no other bases could obtain the medicine. The voices that used Wen Qingling being a zombie as an excuse to refuse any contact with Civilization City disappeared. The high-level individuals who had once been the most enthusiastic were no longer in Land City, Lei City, or Jiao City. Xiao Zhang, Lei Zhang, and Mo Zhang had all rejected these high-level individuals from joining together. Whether it was due to resentment over the destruction of the central giant city or to avoid Wen Qingling's wrath, their choice was also a statement. They were willing to establish good relations with Civilization City. Especially Land City and Lei City, they were united and would never have second thoughts about Civilization City. Xiao Zhang, Old Shui, and the father-son duo from the Lei family all owed their lives to Wen Qingling. Moreover, their son and father were both in Civilization City, so what reason did they have not to stand with Civilization City? Mo Zhang was a clever person. The fate of Huasha was in the hands of Civilization City, and Zhao City needed to establish a good relationship with them. The central giant city was breached, resulting in countless deaths and injuries. The remaining survivors scattered and fled. Among the survivors who followed Mo Zhang to escape, not even one survived. There were too many survivors outside, all seeking a powerful base to settle in. However, the 5 strongest bases became increasingly difficult to enter. It was no longer an era where anyone could enter a base just by being a survivor. The landscape of the entire Huasha underwent a complete reshuffling after the fall of the central giant city. Civilization City became the undisputed #1 base. Those who knew the history of Shang County Base, Shu County Base, and Yu County Base also wanted to achieve great success. They voluntarily brought their bases and became affiliated bases of Civilization City, hoping to receive the same treatment as the 3 major affiliated bases. Unfortunately, the first affiliated base, Shang County Base, was hard-won by Chong Boong. After that, the decision to accept Shu County and Yu County was made solely by Wen Qingling himself. No one could influence Wen Qingling's decisions. Wen Qingling was not a soft-hearted person. Those with ulterior motives were chased away by the guardian beasts of Civilization City, the mutant doll cat and the mutant cow, for a long distance. Along the way, the 2 guardian beasts even fought each other. The mutant doll cat had never liked that stupid cow and couldn't fight it within the city. So when they left the city, the ragdoll cat scratched and scratched the cow, but the cow's skin was too thick. The ragdoll cat's claws were getting sore, and the stupid cow didn't respond at all. The ragdoll cat became so angry that it ignored the cow. The number of new humans in Civilization City was increasing, while the number of civilized zombies remained relatively stable. Unless there were special circumstances, Wen Qingling would only provide blood anemones to those he wanted to give greater strength to, turning them into civilized zombies. For example, Sha Zhang and the generals who stayed behind in the central giant city with him, Wen Qingling wanted to promote them and would definitely grant them power. Becoming a civilized zombie had become a matter of pride. There was no difference between civilized zombies and new humans except for their power. If they were valued by the city lord and granted blood anemone liquids with higher purity, they would have the strength equivalent to level 4 to level 6 evolved zombies immediately after transformation. These were things that new humans could only dream of. The physical abilities and capabilities of new humans were far superior to ordinary people. Their social status was rising. Even if they weren't ability users, they possessed strength comparable to ability users. Ability users were rare, but in Civilization City, every resident was a new human with strengths comparable to ability users. This fact made Civilization City inviolable and the most desirable place for everyone. Upon hearing Feng Cheng's words, Wen Qingling had Xiao Zhang feed the 2 children some beast crystals every day. The 2 children didn't know how to absorb energy, so they simply treated the beast crystals as candy and happily chewed on them. After some time, the effects became evident. The 2 little ones grew taller, and the tentacles and mouth discs on their heads disappeared, replaced by black hair. As they gradually grew older, they no longer resembled Wen Qingling as much, only faintly carrying traces of his features. As they grew a bit older, they no longer had any resemblance to Wen Qingling and developed their own unique appearance. Wen Qingling was not surprised by this. The blood anemone that came from his heart was different from the ordinary blood anemones. Tong was developed from the blood anemones from his heart, while the other 2 were developed from ordinary blood anemones. Before transforming into civilized zombies, they had absorbed the blood of countless people, resulting in a mix of genes. It was possible for them to develop into various appearances. The first blood anemone, Kui Bao #1, grew completely freely. After absorbing the toxic blood of so many people, it selected the best genes to grow, becoming handsome with red lips and white teeth. However, Kui Bao #2 started to resemble Old Shui more and more. Xiao Heng was extremely unhappy about this. Every time he came home, he would stare at Kui Bao #2 with cold, icy eyes. This frustrating feeling was similar to when one's wife gave birth to a child with someone else. Although it wasn't a biological birth, The fact that Wen Qingling contributed a drop of blood and then Kui Bao absorbed old Shui's toxic blood to become what it was now made Xiao Heng shiver. One time, old Shui came to Civilization City for a discussion and saw Kui Bao number 2. He couldn't hold back and burst into tears on the spot. Kui Bao number 2 looked exactly like old Shui's deceased son. He resembled his son so much that old Shui couldn't help but be reminded of him. It was too much for him to bear. After that, old Shui kept inquiring about the child's origins, trying to find out if this was his lost grandson. How could he look so much like his deceased son? Wen Qingling said, "He's not your grandson. He should be your son." PFF'd. Old Shui spewed hot tea out of his mouth, his face turning red. When did he have such a grown-up son? Xiao Heng felt a headache coming on. Under old Shui's persistent questioning, he finally told him that this was the chubby child who appeared by his side at the time, and he grew up by absorbing old Shui's toxic blood. That's why he looked so much like him. After digesting this news, old Shui made a decision. He wanted to personally raise Kui Bao number 2. In order to secure custody of Kui Bao number 2, old Shui made repeated trips to Civilization City. Even if he couldn't take the child back home to raise permanently, he would at least take him for a few days and then send him back. He was truly devoted to this child. Zhang Lan was moved by his persistence and agreed to let Kui Bao number 2 shuttle between both sides. Old Shui was overjoyed as if he had found a treasure. He seemed to have become decades younger, filled with enthusiasm. As Civilization City prospered more and more, the various departments were filled with talented individuals. Wen Qingling and Xiao Heng found themselves with some free time. Other than major decisions that required their input, the city lord and the chief general could handle most other matters. Currently, there was peace and tranquility, and no major events were occurring. However, news from other countries indicated a desire for cooperation with China. Regardless of what kind of cooperation it was, Wen Qingling had no interest in engaging with them. His response was to let Feng Cheng take Tong abroad for a trip. With Tong's mischievous nature, Wen Qingling trusted them to cause some trouble and have fun to their heart's content. While other countries had yet to evolve their own kings, they could go wild. No other country dared to set foot on Chinese soil anymore. After an intimate encounter, Wen Qingling suddenly asked, "Do you want a child?" Xiao Heng was startled, holding him in his arms and whispering, "Do you want one?" Wen Qingling had been thinking about this question for several days. He had already made up his mind before asking, "I want a child who looks like both of us." Xiao Heng smiled, flipping him over and pressing him down. "All right, let's conceive one now." Wen Qingling, speechless. After a whole night of passionate entanglement, it was only on the following day that they truly began the conception of their child. This time, both Wen Qingling and Xiao Heng were looking forward to it. Unlike before, where Kui Bao was an unexpected outcome, this time they came prepared. They didn't want to mix anyone else's genes into the equation, only using their own genetic material to cultivate their child. Wen Qingling was highly attentive to this child. He went to the research institute and had researchers extract his heart's blood. The nurturing base blood used was all from Xiao Heng, including blood containing the zombie virus. They didn't allow their baby's genes to be mixed with others. All the virus and blood needed for growth were extracted from Xiao Heng. After 3 days of nurturing, they successfully raised an incredibly adorable baby. When the baby transformed into human form, its tentacles and oral disc fell off, and its eyes were not red but pure black. It had the appearance of a healthy human baby, albeit being only 7 or 8 months old, able to walk and understand human speech, just a bit on the small side. This little being, carrying the resemblance of Wen Qingling and Xiao Heng, was clearly their child. Xiao Heng was overjoyed and couldn't let go of the baby. He personally took care of all the feeding tasks and kept the child by his side at all times. In just a few months, they nurtured the child to the size of a 3-year-old. It must be said that the Kui Bao evolved from the blood anemones were all exceptional in their growth, selecting excellent genes to inherit. This little one perfectly inherited all the outstanding genes of Wen Qingling and Xiao Heng, demonstrating incredible strength at such a young age. After discussing with Xiao Heng, Wen Qingling decided to take the 3 children out to see the world. When Wen Jingwen was younger, he had accompanied Wen Qingling on outings, and Shui Zhou too had been shuttling between Civilization City and Land City since his return from Central Giant City. Only the youngest, Xiao Yi, had been confined to Civilization City and had never breathed the air outside. The two fathers decided to go on a self-driving tour with their children, starting from Civilization City and traveling all over China. The modified RV drove slowly on the highway, and the three children were happily playing inside. When they encountered zombie beasts or fused zombie beasts, they would stop the car to collect beast crystals. It was not Wen Qingling or Xiao Hen who collected them but the three children themselves. At mealtime, they would park the car on the side of the road and let the three children go hunting for mutant livestock, while Wen Qingling and Xiao Hen prepared other ingredients inside the car. Each family member had their designated role. The three children managed to catch a mutated sheep and brought back some mutated mushrooms and wild fruits. Wen Jing, who was already 8 years old in size, dragged a mutated sheep, while Shui Zhou, slightly younger than Wen Jing, carried a handful of mutated mushrooms. Only little Xiao Yi, with his clothes wrapped around some wild fruits, followed behind his two older brothers, dropping the fruits along the way in his short-legged steps. Oblivious to this, he happily pounced into Wen Qingling's arms. In a sweet and tender voice, he exclaimed, "Daddy, I picked fruits." Wen Qingling's gaze softened, and he crouched down to look at the little bean. "How many did you pick?" "Many, many." Xiao Yi cautiously released the hem of his clothes that he had been clutching, but it was empty inside, without a single fruit. Xiao Yi looked confused, clearly not understanding where his fruits had gone. Amused by his innocent and adorable expression, Wen Qingling chuckled. "Where are the fruits?" Xiao Yi scratched his head and suddenly brightened his eyes. "Father took them away." Xiao Yi knew about his father's ability. Anything that went missing was always his father's doing. Wen Qingling called out to Xiao Hen, who was fiddling with the barbecue grill. "Did you steal Xiao Yi's fruits?" Xiao Hen turned to look at him, smiling helplessly and indulgently. "Does Xiao Yi think I have another black pot to bear?" Before setting off, Wen Qingling successfully reached the 10th stage, becoming a true king, and Xiao Hen advanced as well, becoming a true sub-king. In the world of kings, transcending the boundaries of zombies and humans, they were truly free. At noon today, they were preparing to have a barbecue. They had already brought the seasonings. Xiao Hen prepared the grill and ingredients and left it to the three children to handle. He sat beside Wen Qingling, holding him in his arms, and watched the three children earnestly grilling the meat. Wen Qingling lazily leaned against Xiao Hen, feeling a bit drowsy under the sun. He let out a sigh. "I'll take a nap first. Wake me up when the food is ready." Xiao Hen kissed him. "All right." Author's note. After much consideration and revisions, I have decided to end the story here. This is the third book, and there are still many shortcomings. Thank you to all the readers who have followed the story until now. I appreciate your continuous support. It is you who have given me the motivation to strive. Thank you once again. Announcement. Starting in October, I'll be launching a new novel. Please check out the synopsis and consider pre-ordering. Title: After binding the demon hunting system, I became popular. Title subject to change. For 3 years, Lin Ju struggled in the entertainment industry with his group, which had been lukewarm at best. The group leader wanted to go solo without taking the blame, so he exposed Lin Ju's sexual orientation and released photos of Lin Ju, entangling him, shifting all the blame onto Lin Ju. After facing widespread backlash online, Lin Ju got into a car accident on his way home. In another world, Lin Ju spent 5 years catching crabs and awakened his sea monster bloodline. He returned after binding with the demon hunting system. On Earth, only a year had passed, but the group had already disbanded, leaving Lin Ju with a massive breach of contract penalty. To repay his debts, Lin Ju started selling seafood and opened a restaurant. Unintentionally, he became a sensation in the culinary world. His small restaurant was always packed, with influential figures from various industries queuing up every day just to have a taste of his extraordinary dishes. People who held grudges against him started to attack. Hater 1. The menu is decided by the owner daily, no reservations or takeaways, dine in only. Truly domineering. He deserves the title of someone who broke up a group. Hater 2. A failure in the entertainment industry. I hope you fail just as miserably in the culinary world. Hater 3. Fish dish costs 8,888, fruit wine costs 6,666. Who's dumb enough to pay for that? Supporters of the small restaurant fought back. Fan 1. I was lucky enough to eat there once, and ever since then, even the finest bluefin tuna tastes bland QAQ. Fan 2. Since I tried the Little Blue Devil's cuisine, my hormones have been balanced. Fan 3. I swear, the Little Devil completely cured my acne. Every night, Lin Ju went hunting in the Demon Sea, relying on luck to catch whatever he could. Lin Ju whispered to himself, every ingredient I get is obtained at the risk of my life. Is it expensive? Lin Ju's small restaurant had an exception for one person. That person was his childhood dream, the lone star in his lonely nights. Rebirth as an interstellar race. The Star Clan, surpassing all other races in the universe. They possessed immense power, capable of controlling star energy that could destroy everything, and their regenerative abilities made them impervious to harm. Researcher Kai Yong was obsessed with studying this race and finally made a breakthrough. However, an accident occurred during the promotion, leading to his arrest and eventual death in prison. When he woke up again, he became the noblest Saint Sun, Ale of the Star Clan. The Star Temple was the Star Clan's belief system, and the Saint Sun was the beacon of their race. Ever since he woke up, Kai Yong had been pampered beyond belief. Speechless Kai Yong, my goal is to conquer the Star Sea. Clan members, baby, the universe is in your hands. Kai Yong, speechless. Angry Kai Yong, I want to go to the Empire. If you don't let me, I'll go on a hunger strike. His clan members trembled in fear and quickly transported him through the void. Before parting, they earnestly admonished, baby, have fun, we'll come pick you up after a nap. The Star Clan took a 30,000-year nap. Kai Yong, speechless. Finally returning to the Empire, everything he once knew had changed. His once happy family was no more. His father had long been unfaithful, and there was a half-sibling born just 2 months after him. His trusted assistant had become his father's illegitimate child. His star seed research became the illegitimate child's accomplishment. His best friend married the illegitimate child and entrusted Kai Yang's mother and younger brother to their care, exiling them to a remote planet. The only surprise was the person he considered his archenemy, who had silently been helping his mother and brother all along. And that's a wrap. I opened a clinic in the apocalypse, officially ends here. Thank you to the readers who followed through the journey. Hope you enjoyed this series. If you like my translations, you can support me by buying me coffee at Ko-Fi. See ya on the other series I'm translating. 1 Kui Bao number 1. 2 Kui Bao number 2.